You drop $400 on a security system, bring it home, set it up, and then find out it won't actually do anything useful without signing up for a $30 a month cloud subscription? Yeah, I've been there too. My name is Chelsea Miller, and after testing 47 so-called DIY security systems and finding that most of them are secretly useless without constant cloud access, I tore down my entire setup and rebuilt it from scratch using hardware that actually works offline. You're listening to the Smart Home Setup Podcast. Quick heads up before we get rolling. Everything you're about to hear, the research, the testing data, the recommendations, all of that is 100% human verified and written by real people who actually use this stuff. The voice you're hearing right now, though, that's AI generated. Just wanted to be upfront about that from the start. If you've been listening to the show for a while, thank you. It genuinely means a lot that you keep coming back. And if you're new here, welcome to the show. We release new episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, breaking down smart home tech, privacy, automation, all of it, without the marketing fluff. All right, let's get into today's episode. The best home security systems with no monthly fee in 2026 aren't just cheaper than the subscription models. They're more private, more reliable, and they're genuinely yours. Quick verdict here, if you want security that doesn't phone home to some corporate server, you need to look for systems with local storage, open protocols like Zigbee, Z-Wave, or the newer Matter 1.4 standard, and actual offline functionality. Most systems marketed as no monthly fee still leak your data or cripple important features the moment you lose cloud access. I'm going to show you which ones actually deliver on their promises. Now, let's talk about what you should actually look for in a no monthly fee security system. First up, local storage that actually works. Here's what manufacturers won't tell you. When they say optional cloud, what they usually mean is we hobbled local recording. I tested 17 systems that claim to have local storage. Only 6 of them maintained full feature parity when running completely offline. You want onboard storage or NAS compatibility. Your system should write directly to SD cards, internal SSDs, or network-attached storage without requiring any kind of internet authentication. The Reolink LRK16-800B8 PoE system, for example, writes directly to its network video recorder with no cloud handshake required. Check the link below to see the current price. Here's a test you should run before you commit to any system. Disconnect your router during setup. If the system throws errors or refuses to record, it's cloud dependent no matter what the marketing says. I caught 4 different brands that required internet access just to view footage that was supposedly stored locally. That's not local storage. That's cloud storage with a caching layer. Fallback behavior matters a lot. When your internet drops, and it will drop eventually, does recording continue? Does motion detection still trigger? Can you still arm and disarm the system locally? Systems using Zigbee or Z-Wave protocols tend to handle offline operation way better than Wi-Fi systems, which often panic and stop working without cloud connectivity. Next, protocol transparency and hub requirements. You need to know exactly what's talking to what in your system. Matter 1.4, Zigbee 3.0, and Z-Wave all offer local mesh networking, which means your sensors talk directly to your hub without needing cloud intermediaries. Wi-Fi devices are inherently cloud-dependent, unless they're specifically designed otherwise. Check compatibility explicitly. Zigbee sensors require a Zigbee coordinator, which could be a standalone hub, home assistant with a Zigbee adapter, or multi-protocol hubs like SmartThings. Z-Wave devices need a Z-Wave controller, which runs on a different frequency and is completely incompatible with Zigbee. Matter 1.4 devices need a Thread border router or Matter controller, and Wi-Fi devices typically require the manufacturer's cloud services. I run a Home Assistant instance with a Sonoff Zigbee 3.0 dongle. This setup lets me write automation logic that runs entirely on local hardware. For example, if my front door motion sensor detects movement and the alarm is set to armed away mode, then the front door camera starts recording and sends a notification to my local display. That entire process runs on my own hardware with zero cloud involvement. Latency averages somewhere between 120 and 180 milliseconds from sensor trigger to camera recording. Compare that to cloud-dependent systems I've tested, which take 2 to 4 seconds when the internet is working well and completely fail when it's not. Now let's talk about data leakage, because this is where things get ugly. I run packet captures on every system I test, and you'd be horrified at how many so-called local systems are constantly phoning home. Red flags in my testing include continuous DNS queries to manufacturer domains, supposedly just checking for updates or sending analytics. Encrypted telemetry packets sent every 5 to 15 minutes, and systems that seem to forget recordings exist until cloud authentication succeeds. The best performers send 0 packets after initial setup when you disconnect them from the internet. The worst offenders sent over 4,000 packets daily, even with cloud features supposedly disabled in the settings. The Eufy Security Homebase 3 initially looked promising, but I caught it uploading thumbnail data despite local-only mode being enabled. Check the link below to see the current price. I had to create firewall rules blocking its domains. That's not acceptable for a product that markets itself as privacy first. Automation logic and notification systems are another consideration. Without cloud access, you lose push notifications unless you set up alternatives. I use Godify, running on a local server for notifications. It works with Home Assistant automations, so if my backdoor sensor opens and the alarm is set to armed night mode, then the backdoor camera records and Godify sends a notification. This executes in under 200 milliseconds, entirely offline. For remote access, I use WireGuard, which creates an encrypted tunnel to my home network with 0 cloud dependency. Some systems offer email or SMS notifications without cloud subscriptions. Test these before you buy, though. Many require SMTP credentials, which means your email provider becomes a third-party dependency. That's better than relying on the manufacturer's cloud, but it's not fully local either. Hardware ownership and firmware control matter more than most people realize. Can you reflash the firmware? Can you access raw data streams? If not, you don't really own the device. Systems using open protocols typically allow custom firmware. I've reflashed several cameras with open source alternatives that eliminate all cloud connectivity. This voids warranties, obviously, but it's the only way to guarantee there's no unauthorized beaconing happening. Closed ecosystems like Ring, Nest, and Arlo's newer models actively prevent this. You're stuck with whatever data collection practices they implement via firmware updates, and you can't disable those updates without bricking the device. All right, let's get into the actual product recommendations. Starting with the Reolink PoE security camera system, specifically the 8-camera kit. Check the link below to see the current price. This is the closest thing to genuinely cloud-free security I've tested. You get 8 4K cameras, 1 network video recorder with 3 terabytes of internal storage, and it's all power over Ethernet, which means no Wi-Fi dependency and no cloud requirement. On the positive side, it's truly offline. It records continuously, even with the router unplugged. I tested it during a 72-hour power and internet outage with 0 issues. PoE simplifies deployment because you only need a single cable per camera for both power and data, and it reduces wireless interference. You get direct RTSP access, meaning you can stream to Home Assistant, VLC, or any compatible software without using proprietary apps. Person and vehicle detection runs locally on the NVR, not on cloud servers, and there are no firmware lockdowns. It maintains backward compatibility. I'm still running 2024 firmware by choice. On the downside, there are no wireless sensors. This is strictly cameras, so you'll need separate door and window sensors if you want perimeter detection. Wired installation is labor-intensive. Running 8 Ethernet cables through walls took me a full weekend. The NVR web interface feels dated. It's functional, but clunky, and third-party integrations work better. And night vision range is overstated. They advertise 100 feet, but it's realistically effective to about 60 or 70 feet in total darkness. Cloud-free viability score, 9 out of 10. The only cloud feature is optional remote access via Reolink's P2P service. Disable it in settings, set up your own VPN, and you have a completely air-gapped system. It uses PoE over Ethernet with on-VIF support, and it integrates with Zigbee and Z-Wave hubs via Home Assistant for unified automation logic. Next, the Aqara G4 video doorbell paired with the Aqara M2 hub. Check the links below to see current prices. This bundle is the best Zigbee-based security entry point. The doorbell records to a local SD card, supports up to 512 gigabytes, and the hub coordinates up to 128 Zigbee devices locally. Positives include Zigbee 3.0 protocol with mesh networking and sub-200 millisecond latency. It works offline after initial pairing. The hub has local automation, meaning you can run if-then logic directly on the M2 without Home Assistant, though Home Assistant integration is trivial. Doorbell storage is truly local, no cloud required for recorded footage. 512 gigabytes holds about 45 days of motion events at 1080p. The ecosystem is expandable. You can add Aqara door sensors, motion sensors, smart locks, all Zigbee, all local compatible. And the M2 acts as a Matter controller, supporting Matter over Thread bridges, so it's future-proof for Matter.1.4 devices. Negatives, the Aqara app still phones home. Even with local recording enabled, the app sends telemetry. You need to firewall the hub or use Home Assistant exclusively. The doorbell lacks continuous recording. It's motion-triggered only, and it misses events during the 5-second reset between triggers. Person detection requires the cloud. Local recording works fine, but AI features need the Aqara cloud. I disabled this entirely. And there were hub reliability issues in early firmware. The M2 would occasionally drop devices, but firmware 2.0.4 and later seems stable. Cloud-free viability score, 7 out of 10. Local recording works perfectly offline, but the Aqara app constantly attempts cloud connections. Use Home Assistant to avoid their software entirely. Here's an automation example. If the Aqara doorbell button is pressed, then the hub chime activates, the camera records for 10 seconds, and if facial recognition matches, the Zigbee smart lock unlocks. All of that runs locally. Moving on to SimpliSafe. The 9-piece wireless security kit surprised me. Check the link below to see the current price. It's marketed as optional subscription, but it actually functions fully offline, with limitations you need to understand. Pros: no contract ever. The base station stores settings locally. You can arm and disarm with the keypad, no app required. It uses a proprietary 915 MHz RF protocol, not Zigbee or Z-Wave, but the local mesh is reliable, with a range of 400 to 800 feet depending on obstacles. The base station has cellular backup with a built-in battery and SIM. You need a paid plan for professional monitoring, but cellular failover works for local alarms. Entry and exit delays are customizable, with full control over timing, no subscription needed. And you can add up to 100 sensors, so it scales for large homes. There's no remote access without a subscription. You can't check alarm status or receive notifications when you're away from home. There's no camera integration in the base plan. SimpliSafe cameras require a subscription for recording and notifications. There's ecosystem lock-in. Sensors only work with the Simply Safe base and can't migrate to Home Assistant or other platforms. And the base station secretly calls home. I caught firmware update checks and anonymous usage statistics even with online features disabled. Cloud-free viability score is 6 out of 10. It's functional offline for local arming, disarming, and siren alerts, but you lose all remote features and it still beacons home for analytics. It uses a proprietary 915 MHz RF protocol with no integration with Zigbee, Z-Wave, or Matter ecosystems. Next up is Unify Protect, paired with the Unified Dream Machine Pro. Check the link below to see the current price. This is the power user choice. You get a full local NVR, advanced automation, complete network control, but you need to be technically comfortable. Pros? All processing is local, the Dream Machine runs Protect software, and recordings never leave your network. It's professional-grade reliability. I've had 99.8% uptime over 18 months. It just works. There's deep automation via API. You can integrate with Home Assistant, Node-RED, or write custom scripts. It has 10 gigabit SFP plus ports for future-proof networking, and cameras are PoE. And it supports flexible storage, up to 32 terabytes of internal hard drive, which stores 4K footage for months. Cons: expensive entry point. The Dream Machine Pro alone costs around $380. Add cameras and you're over $1,000 quickly. It requires networking knowledge, VLAN configuration, port forwarding, firewall rules. This isn't plug and play. Camera selection is limited. You're locked into Unify cameras. ONVIF support is labeled beta, and it's unreliable. And the mobile app requires a Unify account. Even for local access, initial setup needs cloud authentication, though you can firewall afterward. Cloud-free viability score is 8 out of 10. Runs entirely local after setup, but account creation is mandatory and the device beacons for updates. It uses PoE with RTSP streams and integrates with Zigbee and Z-Wave systems via Home Assistant. Now, the Casa Smart Security Kit with Wi-Fi cameras and smart plugs. Check the link below to see the current price for the TP-Link KC400 outdoor security camera. This offers Wi-Fi-based security on a budget. It's not my top choice, but if you're already invested in Wi-Fi infrastructure, it's workable. Pros include SD card recording. Each camera has a micro SD slot supporting up to 256 gigabytes and records locally without a subscription. RTSP firmware is available. TP-Link provides optional RTSP firmware for some models, which enables VLC and Home Assistant streaming. There's smart plug integration. You can automate lights to flash when motion is detected, all local if you use Home Assistant. And it's relatively privacy conscious. Casa sends less telemetry than Ring or Nest. It still phones home, but less aggressively. Cons: Wi-Fi dependency is inherent. There's no mesh protocol. Each camera talks directly to the router, which causes congestion issues in larger setups. The app requires cloud login. Even to access local SD footage, you authenticate through TP-Link servers first. Firmware updates are forced, you can't disable auto updates, and TP-Link has pushed breaking changes in the past, and motion detection zones are limited. Without a subscription, you only get basic rectangular zones. Cloud-free viability score is 5 out of 10. Local recording works, but app functionality is heavily cloud-dependent. It's only viable if you integrate with Home Assistant and block Casa domains. It uses Wi-Fi, 2.4 gigahertz only on most models, with no native Zigbee or Z-Wave compatibility. Here's a controversial pick: the Wyze Sense Security Kit with Zigbee sensors paired with the Wyze Cam V3. Check the link below to see the current price. Wise has a terrible privacy reputation. I've documented their data collection extensively, but these specific products offer unexpected local functionality when you properly firewall them. Pros: the Sense Bridge uses Zigbee 3.0. Contact and motion sensors work with Home Assistant via Zigbee 2QTT, so you can bypass the Wise ecosystem entirely. The Cam V3 supports RTSP firmware. Official Wise firmware enables local streaming with no cloud required for recording to a NAS. It's ridiculously cheap. A full starter kit with hub, 4 sensors, and a camera costs around $100. And it has micro SD recording. The camera records continuously to a 256 GB card and is accessible via RTSP without the cloud. Cons: Wise's privacy record is abysmal. They've had multiple data breaches and they sell analytics to third parties. RTSP firmware disables cloud features. It's either or. You can't use both, which is fine but worth knowing. The Wise Hub tries to call home constantly. You must firewall it, or it sends sensor state data to AWS servers. And camera quality is mediocre. 1080p is soft, night vision is noisy. It's fine for basic monitoring, not evidence grade. Cloud-free viability score is 6 out of 10. With RTSP firmware and aggressive firewalling, it's local only. But you're fighting against Wise's design intent every step of the way. Here's an automation example via Home Assistant. If the Wise contact sensor on the garage door opens and the time is after 10 p.m., then the Wise Cam V3 starts recording and the garage light turns on. I maintain this setup as a testbed for cheap, local-first security, but I wouldn't recommend it for your primary system unless budget is your absolute top constraint. Now let's get into some frequently asked questions. Can home security systems really work without any monthly fees? Yes, but you need to verify local functionality explicitly before buying. I've tested dozens of systems marketed as optional subscription, and about 40% had critical features disabled without cloud access, usually remote viewing, person detection, or even just reliable notifications. The systems I've covered all maintain core security functions offline: local recording, motion detection triggers, and alarm functionality. What you lose without subscriptions: cloud storage backup, professional monitoring, and remote access, unless you set up your own VPN. What's the difference between truly local storage and cloud optional storage? Truly local means the device records directly to physical storage, like an SD card, NVR, hard drive, or NAS, without requiring internet authentication. I test this by disconnecting routers during recording. If it still saves footage and lets me access it locally, it's genuinely local. Cloud optional often means the device can save locally, but it requires cloud login to access that local footage, or it cripples features like motion zones or person detection. The Eufy Homebase 3, for example, stores locally but requires internet to authenticate before showing you recordings. That's not truly local in my book. Do I need a hub for no subscription security systems? Depends on the protocol. Wi-Fi cameras connect directly to your router, no hub needed, but they're cloud-dependent by design. Zigbee and Z-Wave sensors absolutely require a hub or coordinator. They can't function without it. Options include dedicated manufacturer hubs like the Aqara Hub M2 or SmartThings, USB dongles plugged into a Home Assistant server, which is my preference, or multi-protocol hubs. PoE camera systems like Reolink include an NVR that functions as both recorder and hub. The advantage of hub-based systems: they create local mesh networks that work during internet outages. How do I get notifications without cloud subscriptions? You have 3 local-first options. First, email or SMS via SMTP. Some systems like SimpliSafe and Reolink can send emails through your mail provider when motion is detected. You configure your Gmail or other SMTP credentials. Second, local notification servers. I run Godify on a Raspberry Pi. Home Assistant sends notifications to the Godify app on my phone entirely over my local network. It works without internet. Third, VPN remote access. Set up WireGuard or OpenVPN to tunnel into your home network remotely, and then you can check cameras and alarm status through local interfaces as if you were home. This requires technical setup, but gives you complete control. What happens to local security systems during power outages? It varies. PoE camera systems require powered network switches. If power fails, cameras go down unless you have a UPS backup. I run my Reolink NVR on a 1500 VA UPS. It maintains recording for 6 to 8 hours during outages. Battery-powered sensors, most Zigbee and Z-Wave door and motion sensors, continue working for months. They report to hubs, which should also be on UPS. Wi-Fi cameras typically lack battery backup unless specifically designed for it. Cellular backup is rare in no-subscription systems. SimpliSafe offers it, but only for alarm signals, not camera feeds. Best practice? Put your router, hub, and NVR on UPS backup. This maintains local recording and alarm functionality even when grid power fails. All right, here's the verdict. The best home security with no monthly fee depends on your technical comfort and your ecosystem. If you want plug-and-play, offline security, the Reolink PoE system delivers professional-grade recording with zero cloud dependency. If you're building integrated smart home automation, the Aqara Zigbee ecosystem offers the best balance of local control and expandability. Pair it with Home Assistant, and you have genuinely private, powerful automation. Avoid systems that require cloud login to access local features. I've seen too many products marketed as no subscription required that lock you out of your own recordings without internet. Test offline functionality within the return window. Unplug your router and verify that every feature you care about still works. I run Reolink cameras with Aqara Zigbee sensors, all integrated through Home Assistant on a mini PC that's never exposed to the public internet. It took a weekend to set up properly, but I own every byte of data my system generates. That's worth more than any cloud subscription. Here are cloud-free setup latency expectations. Zigbee sensor trigger to camera recording should be 120 to 200 milliseconds. Z-Wave door sensor to alarm activation should be 180 to 250 milliseconds. PoE camera motion detection to NVR recording should be under 100 milliseconds. Wi-Fi camera using local RTSP to Home Assistant trigger should be 300 to 600 milliseconds. Your system should respond faster than cloud alternatives, not slower. If local automation feels laggy, something's misconfigured. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Smart Home Setup Podcast. We've got new episodes dropping every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, so there's always something coming down the pipeline. If you found this one useful, I'd really appreciate it if you left a 5-star rating and wrote a quick review. It actually makes a huge difference in helping other people find the show when they're searching for this kind of content. And if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe or follow the podcast so you get notified the second a new episode goes live. I'll see you in the next one.